Okay. I'm not sure if any of you really know this, but I'm a huge fucking nerd for platformers. Despite being as young as I am, I pretty much grew up with them. And to this day, I still can't go without a fix of that good old PlayStation 2 magic. This, segues perfectly into Spyro the Dragon, practically the pinnacle of the genre, and one of the better well-known so-called mascots of the Sony PlayStation. I think anyone who has played a game in the past 20 years would recognize this son of a bitch. Spyro had a hell of a run for about 10 years, having a mostly good track record from those good old days of the PlayStation 1 to the shaky yet mostly solid PlayStation 2 era. But then, let's just say something happened. So, yeah, this is what happens when you decide to industrialize kids gaming. And this is what I wish to talk about: the Spyro fanbase and Skylanders, and the sort of dynamics behind this sort of fucking mess. With Skylanders reaching the end of its train, and Crash Bandicoot getting its own HD remake on the PlayStation 4, many Spyro fans are understandably quite pissed off and are wondering why the hell we haven't had a Spyro game. And, well, this is my attempt to answer their question in the most expert-y kind of way. So first, we need to understand why Skylanders was made in the first place. This is a tale that goes back to 2008, believe it or not. That was the year that Dawn of the Dragon came out, the last game in the Legend of Spyro trilogy. It did poorly, to say the least. The best score that the Legend of Spyro games got at launch were around 6 out of 10. Maybe 6.5 for the PlayStation 3 versions. And that's generous in my opinion. But you might think to yourself, 6.5 doesn't seem so bad. How is that poor? Well, the games were in fact going to have a movie based off of them, but Activision, being Activision, pulled the plug almost immediately. And you just don't pull the plug on a franchise like that, especially a large company like Activision. This should give you an idea of just how poorly Spyro did in his last hours. And after the catastrophe of the Legend of Spyro, Activision was left with a broken mess of a franchise. So, they teamed up with Toys for Bob and decided to do arguably one of the most controversial decisions in the history of video games. Now, whether you like the games or not, Skylanders made a shit ton of money and went on for at least 6 years. This franchise was successful, spawning lookalikes such as the Amiibo and Disney Infinity. It was an industry changer, just like the iPhone when it first came out. But the tides are starting to turn. Last year's E3, we had a hell of a shock when it was announced that Crash Bandicoot was actually getting its own HD remaster in 2017. And we're seeing hints that Spyro could come back as well. So, what the hell changed in those 6 years? I have 3 words for that: risk and reward. See, back in 2005, we were seeing the exact opposite situation happen to platformers. The shooters, like Call of Duty, were starting to take over the market, especially since the platformer by that time had become a bloated genre, with all sorts of attempts to just sort of cash in. Sad to say it, but by the time The Legend of Spyro hit the scene, kids' games were long dead in the industry. It simply just would not make sense for a AAA company to invest into a genre that rotted. But Activision was smart. They decided that instead of trying to beat a dead horse into the ground, they would reinvent the wheel. So, when they teamed up with Toys for Bob to make Skylanders, they used the likeness of Spyro to advertise the game. And whilst that might be a debatably grimy practice, and we all thought at first that this was going to destroy Spyro, it's sort of ironically saving him. We are now starting to talk about these nostalgic titles after years of relative silence. Now, I am nowhere close to an expert in the industry, and I've only really taken one class of economics. But with the ukulele, with the Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, and a couple of other examples I can't think of right now, we are seeing the first sparks of a fire that could light a brand new era in video gaming. Those are really all of my words for now, and I hope this all makes sense. Thanks for listening, pals.